Hey guys, Brian Willey with Local Client Takeover. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about my rubber stamped method approach. And what I want you to do is really start to think a lot bigger, okay? So we're talking about a hybrid rental site model. You know, it's fine to start off with, just kind of testing the waters and doing one or two of these. But where it gets really interesting is when you find a niche that you know works and you literally rubber stamp that approach. So that's what's going to allow you to scale. That's what's going to allow you to churn out these sites very quickly. To also, by the way, start to learn your numbers very well so that when you're having conversations with business owners, you can speak intelligently as to what the average job is worth to somebody. What are their profit margins? You need to get into the head of the business owner and learn this kind of stuff so that when you pitch a certain price for your hybrid site, that's not only going to be their sort of home base and their brand, but also an area where they're going to be getting a lot of phone calls. You know your numbers. And so it's hard to do when you try to dabble in too many things. When you're first starting off, you want to dabble. You want to, kind of just try different things because you want to figure out what works, what's going to get you results. But I highly recommend looking at things like HomeAdvisor, for instance. HomeAdvisor publishes a service cost list or an average price list of what customers pay per job. And I'm going to post that under this video so that you can go check that out. And what it does is it'll give you a gauge of what the average job costs, and it'll actually allow you to go try to pick some niches where the average cost is pretty high on something. Now, cost and profit are two different things, so you really want to get to know your market. But you'd be shocked at what certain things cost, according to HomeAdvisor. And HomeAdvisor has taken a snapshot across, multiple jobs in an area and figuring out what the average job costs. So just to give you an example, I stumbled on something probably a year ago, and this seems just, completely kind of stupid actually if you think about it, but you would never really think about this. But one of the highest costing jobs out there for home improvement is basement remodeling, of all things. Garage remodeling. I think I showed in the free group a garage remodeling video that I was able to rank in something like 15 seconds or 30 seconds for Beverly Hills garage remodeling. Why did I do that? Why would I even take the time to do something that sounds that silly? The reason is that there are people out there who have money who will spend big money on projects like basement remodeling, garage remodeling, things you might not have thought of. So HomeAdvisor is a great place to give you a method to kind of brainstorm niches. Again, you need to know your numbers. You need to sort of figure out what's the average job worth to somebody. What's their profit margin on something like that? And I would talk to several people because, if you approach it from the perspective of you're trying to sell somebody something, they're going to lie a lot of times about what their profit margin is because they want to try to get you to give them the lowest price possible. But for instance, basement remodeling in the Midwest, where guess what happens a lot? Tornadoes. So a lot of people have basements. The average cost is something like $23,000 to $25,000. I forget what garage remodeling was, but it was in that neighborhood as well, $20,000, $25,000. So what I would suggest is try to, figure out a way to contact some of these owners and figure out what their average profit margins are. Do some research on the web, figure out what an average profit margin is for somebody. So you can figure out, what does it make sense? Does it make sense to charge, this amount for this site, or does it make sense to charge a much higher amount for this site in these phone calls? So rubber stamping sites is really a way to grow, and the way to rubber stamp sites is to really start to dive into a niche. So what I did is I dove into the DUI niche. I know that the average DUI case, first offense, is around $2,000 to $3,000 for the attorney, and they don't have a ton of costs involved in that. Maybe some court filing paperwork, which they're probably going to pass on to the client anyway. Second offense, $4,000 to $5,000. Third offense, somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000. So that's kind of a home run for me, because I know if I go out and I price a site at a couple grand, and I know that I can provide them even 10 new leads a month, and they can close a few of them, that's $6,000 a month, in exchange for, say, $2,000 a month for my rental site. So you can do the same thing with really any niche. I just encourage you to be smart about it, figure out where the price points are higher, research the profit margins so you can speak intelligently to that business owner about what this potential site that you're going to be renting them is worth, and what it's really worth when you are throwing in the fact that this call has already received 14 phone calls, 20 phone calls, and we plan on keeping it going, every single month, and they're exclusive. And, it even helps more if you know that the average price per lead somebody's paying for non-exclusive leads. If you know that they're paying $50 or $60 a lead, and, you can kind of extrapolate out, look, if you're getting, 20 of those non-exclusive leads a month, here's what you're paying per month. You're paying, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. And what's your close rate, Mr. Business Owner, on those? Oh, they're not, it's not very good. Well, let's talk about why. It's probably because it's going to between 4 and 6 or 8 different service providers. What we're going to be providing is a really nice looking website. Here's why it converts. Here's why it does well. It's going to showcase your brand. And more importantly, we're going to be providing exclusive phone calls through our tracking number that don't go to 4 to 6 other leads where you have to race to get out there and get them on the phone. So what we're going to be talking about is a rubber stamped approach. And when I say rubber stamped approach, think of a rubber stamp. What do? You're basically just inking the stamp, and you're churning something out over and over and over again. Think of like an invoice where you're just hitting paid, 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 paid. What I want you to do is think big here. So when you find a niche, I want you to find a local business theme generation site that you like, that meets the criteria we talked about, that's easy to work with. And I'm going to give you 3 of them right here. 2 of them I've used, 1 of them I've not used, but looks really, really good. And what I do is I find a niche, and I use a VA to create these sites on a rubber stamped basis. So instead of me saying, hey, just churn out one of these sites, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go research the largest cities, by population, and I'm going to show you an example of one of these DUI sites that we did. This was a little bit different. This was not for a rental site. This was actually for a former client, and I say former, and I'll tell you why in a minute. He was a giant pain in the ass, so that's why he's a former client. But I'm going to show you an example of what these sites look like. And what you can do is literally hand these off to your VA, go research the cities by population, a number of different cities, and instead of churning out one of these sites, tell your VA to churn out 10 or 20 of these sites. Or if it's you doing it, just know that it's really not that hard. Start with 5 sites or something like that. Get the content written. When you get used to using these themes, it's very, very easy. These themes all have back-end panels where you just change a few things, and it completely changes the look and feel of the theme, the placement of everything that's there. So the thing that drives me absolutely mad about WordPress themes is if you've ever gone out and you've shopped for WordPress themes, it is not what you see is what you get. These themes look really, really slick, and they look cool when you go to the different sites. And you go, oh shit, this is going to be really easy to put up this theme. It's going to look just like this. And you do an install, and it looks like a blank page with a little bit of text or something like that. And only then do you realize that there's all these short codes and all these things that you have to manipulate. And you might as well be a freaking developer at that point. So I'm a big fan of pre-done themes where it has a back-end panel that controls the things that you want to replace. And in the end, the theme that you start out with, that you see when you're purchasing the license for the theme, is the theme you end up with. The only thing that changes is the content, the slider images, your phone number, and that's really it. So think big. Think rubber stamped approach. Think, how can I, instead of doing one of these sites, how can I go out and do 20 of these sites, and go out and go get calls in advance, and in 2 weeks from now maybe have 3 to 5 of them rented out, so I'm not waiting around 3 months. Now, is that a strain on your budget? Potentially. You've got to spend some money to generate these phone calls in advance. So maybe you don't want to do 20 in advance, or 20 of these sites at once. Maybe 20 of these sites at once. Maybe you want to start with 3 or 5. But just know that once you have some seed money coming in from renting these sites, I would put some of it away to go out and churn out 8 or 10 more sites so that I can use that money to generate leads for, in the form of phone calls, so I can go get those sites rented and those sites rented. Once you have a niche and it's working and that it's easy to go rent these sites, guys, there's a lot of big cities out there. You could easily churn out 40 or 50 of the same sites in different cities and do the same approach. Is it going to be easy to get all of them rented? No. Are you going to get them all rented in week 1, meaning 2 weeks after you've generated those phone calls, first phone calls? No. It's going to take a little bit of effort. I'm at I would say a distinct advantage because I've got a really incredible salesperson who can churn through these things, and get on the phone and just get them rented over and over and over again. So if you're not in that position yet, become a good salesperson and be ready to do that, or find somebody who's a good salesperson. Be willing to give up some nice commissions. Don't be skimpy. Pay nice commissions to your salespeople. It will come back to you in spades every single time. And pay recurring commissions. So have them sell at once and give them a little bit of a cut every single month. They're going to want to keep selling and selling and selling for you. So I'm not going to make it sound like I go out and sell these things myself. Again, a lot of times it's me coming up with the idea. It's me marketing things. Am I opposed to getting on the phone with people? No, but selling is not my forte. It is not my forte at all. Mark, on the other hand, is just ridiculous at sales. That guy just crushes it, right? So Mark's very, very good at sales. For me, I recognize my limitations, and I'd much rather, manage a team of people to churn out sites like this, manage the back-end process on pay-per-lead and things like that, and have a salesperson go out there and sell this stuff. So it's all about scalability, and the fastest way to scale this hybrid model is to take a rubber stamped approach. Find a good theme, stick with it, go out and don't do one of these sites, do 10 of these sites. Either rent them yourself or hire a salesperson to go get them rented, and keep the process rolling. Remember, if you were to do SEO and do this, it may take too long. Your salesperson's going to get bored. The commissions aren't coming in steadily because now you've got another block of 5 or 10 sites that you're trying to rank. With my method, you go and rent them and you put up 5 or 10 more sites, and in 2 weeks, as long as you have the capital to make sure that those phone calls are coming in, get your salesperson on the phone and get them working and start renting out those sites. And guess what's going to happen? You get 20 of these sites rented at, $1,500, $2,000 a month. That's a lot of money. That's, $40,000 a month in recurring revenue. You're going to give some of it to your salesperson, but do you really care, right? So you need to know your pricing, make sure that you understand your model, and make sure that you're making enough. But this is going to be a truly passive approach for you, especially if you're not doing SEO, I mean, once it's set up and once it's rented, and you have a pay-per-lead network, or you have an AdWords person or a good Facebook person running these ads, and they continue to produce, guess what happens with you as the sort of middleman? You're just collecting a bunch of money every month, and you're making sure that people get paid, like your salesperson, your advertising costs get paid, and you're pocketing the rest of it without doing anything else. So hopefully that sounds like a cool model to you, because I'm telling you, it's passive income all the way. Whereas pay-per-lead is passive to an extent, but you do have to, you do have the challenges of invoicing people. You have the challenges of people disputing certain calls. It's not quite as clean. This is a little bit cleaner method. So we're going to start with the rubber stamp approach. And the way we do that, again, is we pick a theme. So I'm going to show you a few themes here that I like and that I've actually used. Number one is the local theme gen, and they have a couple different prices. You can check them out here. I want to say they have a single user license, 10 sites, for $97, or $297 unlimited. If you think you're going to be churning out a ton of these, I would just pick up the unlimited license. And out of the gate, these things, I'm going to tell you, look ugly. They don't look right, but the stuff is in the right place. They don't look particularly great. And when I say that, I really mean this kind of stuff here, like this logo primarily doesn't look great. Everything else looks pretty professional. It's really the logo that kind of gives you, like when you first look at it, it's kind of off-putting. You look at it and go, maybe they should have put a different logo there that looks kind of professional. But don't worry about that. Everything else about it looks really professional. And again, when we are going to use this as a home base, we're going to go rent this site out, we're going to have a professional logo created for maybe $40 that we're going to put right here. And by the way, there's no coding or anything that you have to do to get this logo here. There's a back-end panel inside of WordPress where there's a spot that says upload logo. And guess what happens? You upload the logo, and there's your new logo right there. You can change, there's a back-end panel where you can change this stuff. So this is just an example for driveway replacement. Maybe you're working with an HVAC person, and this becomes all about HVAC. They give you a bunch of choices that are pretty cool, actually, in terms of these little icons that they use. So for instance, for contractors, you can use a contractor theme that they already have built in that's going to have these little hard hats, a little drill right here. And they give you all the list of types of themes that they have. I can't remember all the ones that they include. They also have a generic one in case it doesn't match anything that you're working with. Then you don't have to have these, these little, like a hard hat symbol for a DUI attorney is not going to make sense. Well, maybe it is. I think maybe you need a hard hat if you're out driving your car drunk. But in general, there's just like a generic theme that you can also choose. Don't worry about this logo. It's replaceable. Here's what I like about this theme. Let's go to an inner page. What do you see that's remained fixed? If you guessed right here that this form and this Call Us Now button has remained fixed across each of the pages, you guessed right. I love this kind of layout because what we want is we want an above the fold experience, meaning that people don't have to scroll. And if they're on their mobile phone, we want it to look nice. We don't want them to have to scroll through a bunch of crap. We want our call button always visible from every page. Preferably, we want our form or our contact form visible from every page. So this meets that requirement. What it doesn't meet necessarily is it doesn't have a slider built in to where we can have a nice slideshow going on. Not totally necessary. What I would probably do is put an offer here. If you start working with somebody, let's say it's HVAC and we talked about it's Las Vegas in the summer. Maybe this photo here is get 15% off of emergency HVAC repair services when you call today. And then save this little spot down here for a picture. You can also have, a photo gallery, right, that you add to the menu. and that can give people pictures of, you know, this contractor's team, jobs they've done, all that stuff. The rule of thumb Joe Troyer mentioned, and I absolutely agree, is you don't want too many frickin' menu items. You don't want people clicking all over your site, getting distracted, because in the end, distraction equals a bounce, essentially. You know, not a bounce in the true sense of the word where they're there for 7 seconds on one page and they left. They're there for 3 minutes on too many pages and they can't make a decision because you've given them too much information. So we want to balance the need for giving some level of information with not having too much navigation, okay? So I like to put a couple of articles, like maybe 2 articles about whatever their main services are, a testimonials page, you know, a little bit about the owner, again, like we talked about, where it's a picture of the owner, what they like to do on the weekend, not about, you know, my company this and my company that. It's really about connecting with the owner as a business person and as somebody in your community that you want to do business with. So don't overwhelm people with just a crap load of menu items here. It's going to allow them to click too much and get distracted. So this meets my test for user experience. This would probably have, you know, if you had a conversion rate optimization specialist, they would say, hey, you know, barring your ability to pay for a conversion rate optimization specialist at $10,000, this is probably a good place to start because it meets these requirements. Everything else they can read about is above the fold or below the fold, you know, if they even scroll. So it's going to give you a little spot to highlight some areas. You know, do you have questions? Give us a call here. Repeating this theme up here, so you can call us here. You can call us here. It gives them little check boxes, or you the ability to do little check boxes of, you know, give them the benefit of using this service. Benefit, benefit, benefit. Think copywriting. Don't think website writing, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So I really, really like this theme, and it converts very well, by the way. All this stuff is very functional, uploads to multiple emails. I forget if this one uploads to an Aweber account. I'm not positive on that. But you can check out, you know, this one here over at localthemegen.com, and I would definitely pick that up. Let's move on to the next one that I really like as well. This one is by Ink Themes, and it's I think it's just called the Local Business WordPress theme. You know, not the catchiest name in the world. I'm going to show you what it looks like on their site, then I'm going to show you what it looks like on a site that I put together. So here's a test site. Now, what do you notice immediately about this? I'm going to let you look for a second here. Cool sliders, right? Very cool sliders. Very cool 3D header that they've used here, all above the fold. Excellent looking on a mobile device. Has tap to call features exactly where we want them. Has form features exactly where we want them without people scrolling a bunch. It also allows you to build in, you know, maps and schema markup down here and all that stuff if you do SEO. It has 3 boxes, which have been really kind of identified as something really that people focus on. You don't want to overwhelm people, so you give them kind of 3 choices. You know, maybe you use testimonials, you use a photo gallery, you know, whatever, about the owner, something like that. Again, you keep these to a minimum. You don't want a bunch of places for people to navigate. Now, here's what I don't like about this that I think could be even better if they would fix this. So far, they have not fixed this. Watch if I go to the gallery. Well, hang on a second. Let's go to Contact Us. Gallery is not a good example. What do you notice has changed here? What's missing? If you guessed the contact form, you guessed right. So what they didn't do correctly, I think, on this theme, and what they could do better, is keep this header fixed throughout all of the inner pages. If I go to the blog, what should be happening is I should have the ability to have a blog here if I want, but my header should still look the same down to here. And they haven't done that very well. So this one converts pretty well, but it could probably convert a lot better if this was visible above the fold on every single page. So, you know, I don't know, I may reach out to them and just say, look, is there a way to fix this? You may also look at getting some custom coding done on one of these things if possible. I don't know Ink Theme's rules on that. You'd have to check with them, but maybe you could get, you know, somebody on Elance who could custom code this to remain fixed on all of your themes. I have no idea. So this one is really cool. I've used this a lot. And in fact, for my rubber stamp approach, I've used this over and over again for the DUI sites that I ended up renting. We rented out 8 of these sites using this exact theme. So let me show you what one of those sites looked like. This was actually a client site, so it's a little bit different. It's not going to be exactly identical. And I say it was a client site because I fired this client because he was just a giant pain in my ass. Was not paying me enough to listen to him harass me all day long, so I fired him. So just be you know, quick to hire and or slow to hire, quick to fire, I should say. So one thing you're going to notice is that the logo is gone right now. I just have contractor up there. I probably could go rent this, but this is in a pretty small podunk town in Mississippi. It's actually 3 towns that collectively, I think, you know, a shopping center in Las Vegas probably has a greater population than these 3 towns combined. So that's why I haven't really rented it. I haven't bothered to rent it. But just know that the sites that I did rent look identical to this. The only change is that this is, you know, the DUI attorney's logo. So instead of it being contractor, you can see this matches this local, you know, this local business contractor theme up here. That's the standard placeholder contractor. And when I removed the logo I created for this guy, when I pulled the rug out from underneath him, this is what appeared. And right now I just haven't changed anything. So that's what you're going to see. So what I have is I own this asset. I created it as, you know, basically Central Mississippi Law Firm. I probably could have branded this a little better. Google loves branding more than it likes lead gen sites. So I could have used some sort of branding, like, you know, maybe I call it Central Mississippi Criminal Defense Center. Or, you know, that's pretty long, but something like that. You get the point. Criminal Defense Center or something like that, to where it's not clearly identified with any one client, which we don't want because we own the asset and we want to be able to re-rent these sites if our client bails out or proves to be a giant pain in our ass. So I could have done a better job branding this without using the person's name or anything like that. I like things like DUI Center, Criminal Law Defense Center, Elder Law Center, things like that, that sound like a brand but are not necessarily a brand and still would allow you to put somebody's actual brand on that site when you're renting the site, if that makes sense, okay? So this is what the site looks like. You can tell that I have a minimal amount of content in terms of the menu items. I have very limited menu items. There's not that many places for them to click. I've got a home, I've got a contact us, I've got a meet our attorneys, which is coming soon because I've removed, you know, this person completely off of there. Then I have practice areas, DUI representation, criminal law, and in this case he did personal injury as well. Most of the time, if I'm rubber stamping these things, I would probably just do DUI or DUI and criminal law. Those tend to go hand in hand. Those sorts of lawyers tend to do those things. So think in terms of what your end client might do. If it's HVAC, you know, most people do HVAC repair and replacement. They do heat, you know, have a section about heating and cooling and the types of systems that are typically used in that area, by the way. You know, make sure you get the terminology right. So what I did is, you know, using this as an example, I went out and I used this site and I gave this over to my VA and I said, create me 10 of these things. And we're going to go have, you know, original content written on each of these, And I filmed a video for him showing him how to set up these sites exactly how I want them, from start to finish, including how I would silo them. Now again, I'm not worried so much about SEO, but if it's sort of a happy byproduct of me doing some good on-page optimization and siloing, and down the line I change my mind and want to do SEO, at least I have it set up. I have that option. So I had him silo these things the way that I would silo them, okay? So that's up to you whether you want to do or not. The point is, I handed these off to my VA and said, I didn't say, give me one of these. I said, give me 10 of these. And I gave him a list of the 10 areas that I wanted by population. And guess what else I did? This ties into FCS Networker. It ties into our local authority types of strategies where we talk about putting in local authority blogs. I made them all in one state. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that when I rank, if I want to rank these things down the line, then I have an opportunity to set up an authority network based on that state, based on these cities in FCS Networker. So I'm not going to reveal the state or any of that stuff. But what it's going to allow you to do, if you do choose to do SEO, is minimize your costs. And again, it keeps content writing easy, because if you have a content researcher who, let's say all of your sites are in Florida, and Florida happens to call, I don't know, not call, but let's say that let's say you're doing an HVAC site and they use a particular, type of term for the way that they use heating systems, not that they need heat in Florida. That's probably a bad example, but you get my point. Your researcher / writer is going to be able to speak to that. If you are going to do SEO, you're able to set up things like a network in Florida or multiple networks in Florida by city that allow you to create content around that, where you can put links embedded into city and state level content that, guess what, gets you much better and faster rankings. So I highly recommend trying to start with a state if you can when you're using this approach. It's not absolutely necessary. If you have absolutely no intention of doing SEO down the line, don't worry about it too much. But I was keeping my options open, and I figured, look, let's just test a state. And if I ever want to do SEO down the line and get more leads, I can. At the moment, I've chosen not to, just because, again, I like the hands-off approach. So that's it. Basically, it's the same thing as the other one I showed you. It has a back-end panel. You can set up little call-out boxes right here. You can have a section here. You can actually have a video right here if you want. You can build in schema. You can build in a map, all the things that are important to getting your stuff ranked on maps. If you ever choose to rank this on maps, you can do all that stuff. I did this more for just, at least in this case, this was a client. So originally I had his address and I was getting it ranked and, working on getting him ranked on maps before I fired him. But if you're not doing any of that stuff, you don't need to worry about this whole section here. Just again, keep it clean, rubber stamp the approach. Get articles written on DUI and criminal law over and over and put them on this site. Again, the thing I do not like about this this theme is that it's missing the form. But my goal is really to try to get as many phone calls as possible. So it's not that important, but some people just don't want to call at that moment. They want to submit a form and then have somebody call you back. And the contractor you're working with is going to know it came from this site. It's going to say new lead from Central Mississippi Law Firm into their email. So they know that they are going to be getting, if a form comes through, it's coming from you. So it instills in them over and over again, this came from you. You're providing this lead, making them want to stay with you. So really quickly, that's this site. That's kind of the rubber stamp approach. Let me show you one more we just came across. We had Joe Troyer as a guest today on Local Client Playbook. Joe, if you don't know him, created analytic call tracking. I mean, this is the industry standard for being able to track phone calls and provide custom professional reports to your clients, whether on a pay-per-lead basis or for your own information if you're doing this hybrid site rental, and to, really as backup in case your client says, hey, I'm not getting leads, and you know that they've gotten 20 phone calls, for instance. You can say, are you sure? Listen to this recording, listen to this recording. So it puts people in line very, very quickly. So Joe's a cool guy, and has actually created a bunch of these pre-done themes for all sorts of, service niches. Again, he likes service niches, and for the same reason I explained earlier, service niches, the volume is there, and you can get calls very cheaply through call networks, on Craigslist, and people are calling these people in big cities all week long. So whereas an attorney, you might expect to get them 20 calls a month, if you're really working hard at it, maybe 30 calls a month, sometimes more depending on, if it's a huge, huge city and you're just really working at it on AdWords and Facebook and all that other stuff. And typically the call volume is not there, but you can charge them more. Whereas service industries, you can charge, you can't charge them as much, but man, you can pump out a lot of call volume with these things in big cities. So Joe's put together, looks like something like 7 different themes. They look really cool. So here's one for brick pavers. I don't know if he's chosen them based on niches that he's worked in that convert or not. And you'll have to check it out. I don't know if these are customizable. I'm assuming they're customizable. But look, they meet the requirements of what we've talked about. Look at this. Here's a custom, I think this is actually that's a cleaning company. Let me show you the pool builder one. This one's pretty cool. Pool building, by the way, big niche, big money. You need to know your profit margins here. But look how cool this looks. It meets all the requirements again. It's got a nice slider where you can put in, by the way, who you service. You can put in an offer where maybe, I don't know, it's slow because it's the middle of winter and people aren't building pools. And you can put in an offer to get their pool done at a 25% discount, whatever you work out with the owner as part of the slider. It also has a direct call to action right here, which is to call somebody. What it doesn't have is a form. So Joe's very big on just call only. It does have a form here, but it's more below the fold. So, it's really, you have to test to see what works. Obviously, his emphasis is just on phone calls. My emphasis is on phone calls, but I like to have a secondary backup of the people who don't want to pick up the phone today but still are interested can fill out a form. And again, my owner that I'm working with will know it's coming from my site. So these are really nice looking sites. You can change all this up as far as I know and add things like testimonials, video testimonials, things that help get conversions. So hopefully that all makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions at all about this approach. Happy to help out, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.